what's a match you're most proud of?
You know what? I this is one of the stories I really enjoyed talking about on my tour because it's not one people even saw or remembered. It was January 10th, 1995, with Terry Funk in Japan, and that's where I started seeing Boss because you were doing the Pancrase at that time.
Yeah. And I know Terry. I went to his ranch and everything. He's a good guy.
Yeah, Terry's a great guy, and on that night. We had a small crowd, but you know what it was like with the Japanese. Well, both you guys know what it was like with the Japanese media contingent. That if you're lucky enough to be in front of big crowds, that was great. But those media people were going to get those beautiful full color photos across the country to like 500,000 fans within a couple days. So we only had about 150 fans at this little arena. It was my first no rope barbed wire singles match. And because Terry would wrestle with the Japanese, he would dress with the Japanese wrestlers. He was like part of the culture. Like they were on that night in Guma, Japan, which is a little prefecture they call about 90 minutes outside Tokyo. I didn't even get a chance to see him, let alone talk to him. So you're just trying to put something together while you're there, and just we turned in something special that night. Crazy match, and Terry's out of his mind anyway. But it was the one I'm proudest of because there were so few people. There was relatively little money at stake, but we thought we were building the foundation to that promotion on that night, and that's why I'm so proud of it.
Was that FMW, Mick?
No, we were like a competition to FMW. IWA Japan was competition.
Yeah, IWA, sure.
Yeah, we had we had a good crew of people, but I thought with Terry there, I get a chance to run with the ball as far as I could, and that promotion treated me really well.
Yeah, I know the match and I've seen it. I just couldn't remember the promotion. And Bean, if you want to watch something that's truly something to behold, check that match out. It's it is some off the reservation stuff, man, but really, really good.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like.
Legends to work with someone you love so much and you adore, and you cry with them, you laugh with them. Wrestling goes so deep for something that seems so fake and phony, and that some people don't understand. Pro wrestling is as real as anything is because it's the emotion that's put in it, and Terry brings that out in you. And I'm just a better man for knowing Terry Funk. And I talked to him recently, and he lost his wife recently, and he's suffering a lot. And I was kind of worried about Terry, but he's planning on getting out on the road again next year, just for some autographs and some conventions. So hope to see Terry soon. But it was very enriching. I was blessed to have gotten to spend those times with Terry.
Is there one memory of your personal dealings with Terry Funk that made it special? Sorry.
Besides our weird little conversations in cars, because that's the funny thing about pro wrestlers. The most intimate conversations you have are either in hotel rooms or driving down the road in a car. And, it's stuff like that. And those are the ones, just talking about normal stuff like, oh, God damn it, I was trying to cut the grass the other day and, the lawnmower didn't work and stuff like that. Just us being, you see the human side of him. And because we all look at our heroes like they are heroes, and it's just nice to see through that other side, I guess, sometimes.
Briscoe to become the world champion. But Jack Briscoe didn't beat Dory. Jack Briscoe beat Harley Race, who beat Dory.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, and I know we talked about it a little bit before, I recently asked Jerry Briscoe, just kind of jokingly about it, and why Dory didn't lose to Jack. And he said, he got an accident on his farm, is the story. So I said, "Where's the police report? And he said, "There is none. There's no information about any accidents. There's no police report." So what's the story here, Dr. Tom? You're from that area. What happened? What happened with Briscoe and Funk?
Well, I think now you're just poking the bear, because the story's been out there for years, and you and I look back on it, especially to figure out how important the NWA was back then to professional wrestling, because it was like their claim was to be the real world champion, dating all the way back to the beginning, of the NWA and the world champions, I guess, right? You do know this, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. But the NWA was like 1905 or whatever the fuck is where they're tracing stuff back. And Dory Funk Jr. was a babyface, but also he was a Texan first and foremost. And Jack Briscoe was from Oklahoma. And you do know the rivalry between Texas and Oklahoma, I'm sure.
Yes.
Okay. So I was just a wee lad back then. So I was certainly not privy to any of those meetings firsthand by any stretch of the imagination. But my assumption would be this: you have a baby face and a strong wrestling champion and strong NWA champion and him, Dory Funk Jr. and Jack Briscoe had gone all over the country doing these 60-minute and 90-minute draws back then. So now it comes time for Dory to do the job in Houston. And look, I'm not saying it did or didn't happen. I'm saying the story was that Dory was in an accident and couldn't make it. So my question would be then, once you were healthy enough, why wouldn't you go ahead and have your first match back with Jack and drop the belt then? Instead, he went to Kansas City and dropped it to Harley. Okay, so my question would be why? And so those are, the only conclusions I can draw is he preferred Harley over Jack, and he wasn't going to lose in Texas. So
it's also weird though, because they were saying, they wanted the heel, because Race being the heel to beat the babyface, but they always had matches, Briscoe and
oh
Funk,
yeah,
so babyface. So that wasn't a problem.
No, I don't think it had anything to do with who was a good guy or bad guy in this. I just think it was the perception that Dory Funk Jr. was such a great champion that they didn't want him to lose to Jack Briscoe for whatever reason, who knows? So I think both guys in their matches, it would be a contest, and they would do their stuff, and they had their spots, and they knew what to work, and they had their match down. They knew they could do 60 minutes, they could do 90 minutes, they could do whatever they needed to do. But I don't believe either one ever turned completely heel. It was usually Dory, because he was a champion, who might throw the first forearm or uppercut, and that was where they went. But they had great matches. That's the thing, and they had great chemistry together. I just think when it came down to doing whatever they wanted to do, they decided, no, we'll do it this way instead.
I probably worked with Terry 50 times. Worked with him a lot in St. Louis, and I remember he used to do interviews for me. When I had Southeastern Wrestling, I would bring him in, and I always loved his interviews. He never did an interview just, with the background and nothing happening. He always wanted to do something on his ranch. And I remember one of the first times I ever wrestled him in Knoxville, and he rode his horse out to a big oak tree. It was a ways away, and the cameraman shot him, and he ran like crazy to the horse out to where the tree was, and he took his lariat and threw it over a big limb up there, and he had a noose in it, and he got off his horse, and he said, Ron Fuller, he goes, I'm coming to Tennessee, and out here, what we do to guys like you is we stick your head in this noose. And he went on and on about how he's going to hang me, basically. Terry was always a great character. Worked with him a lot in Japan, too, Terry and Junior. It was there in '83 against Brody and Hanson and Terry and Junior, and a tag team, one of those tag team deals. I went on that tag team tour that took 4 weeks, I think it was. It's December every year. Okay. Annual deal they do.
Yeah, I don't really follow it, but I know they do that tag team tournament.
Yeah, my partner was Barry Windham. Barry was young. Yeah. Barry was real young and a hell of a worker.
We just interviewed him, and let's just say he's not quite as good a storyteller as you.
Yeah, Terry got me with the greatest rib. After the fight with Adrian Adonis, Terry was friends with Sylvester Stallone. And Terry calls me and he says, Sylvester Stallone is looking for a white boxer. And I told him about you and he wants to meet you. And I said, oh, Terry, quit messing with me. I didn't believe him. Then I get a phone call from this guy, and he says, this is so-and-so from Tiger Eye Productions. I work for Sylvester Stallone. We understand that you're coming to Las Vegas, and we would like to fly. No, we're working in L.A. He says, we understand you're coming to L.A. We would like to fly you over to Vegas to meet Stallone to talk about becoming a boxer. And so when I got to my hotel in LA, there was a ticket for me to fly to Las Vegas, and it was from Tiger Eye Production, was I guess his production company, or I thought it was. And so I fly to Vegas, I get out of the limo, and this guy comes out and says, Sylvester Stallone had to leave town, sorry he can't meet you. And then Terry was there working on a movie with Sylvester Stallone in Vegas, and to this day, I think it was a rib. Stallone never knew anything about me, and I just think Terry pulled a great rib on me. It's a big deal. So the guy that puts the ring up, one of the guys that puts the ring up, they send him to go buy the barbed wire like days before, weeks before or something. So there's like several different strains of barbed wire. There's like barbed wire A is a small bob. Barbed wire B is the bigger bob, and the barbed wire C is like the biggest with big prongs on it like this to keep the 2,000-pound cattle out. You know what I mean? So they were supposed to get the small barbed wire, which hurt you less. But the guy made a mistake and said, "Oh, just give me any barbed wire." They gave him the roughest barbed wire. And they put it up. They take intermission, they put the thing up, the mess is ready to go, and then somebody's it's too late now, we can't take that barbed wire down and put a new barbed wire up, they just have to go with it. So they went with it, had a spectacular thing. And what amazed me was there was a spot where Sabu throws Terry Funk into the turnbuckle, come charging in, and Terry Funk moves, and Sabu flies in and catches his arm right here, and as the weight takes him down, and it rips his arm from here all the way to his elbow, and it was like that thick. His meat was hanging out, and there was a long, oh my God. So Sabu looks at his arm. He goes into shock for about a few seconds. He goes, like that. You see your fucking brains hanging out. You know what I mean? But then he came to and said, Fonzie, give me some tape. Go get me some tape. Hurry, please. So I run back to the dressing room and get the white tape, the athletic tape. So what else can we do? So Sabu starts taping his arm up like that. It's crazy. While he's taping his arm up, Terry Funk gives him a reverse neck breaker. Watch the match. You see what I'm talking about? Gives him a reverse neck breaker on the chair. He's still taping his arm up. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
And they finished the match. It was so hardcore. And I ended up getting, barbed wire on my back and a little juice on my back, tore my shirt up, and I got beat up a little bit by Terry Funk. But, no big deal for me. And at the end of the match, they were so entangled in the barbed wire. You'll see some of the footage if you watch the thing. We had to spend 20 minutes cutting them out of the barbed wire with, wire cutters and shit. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. And then backstage, this is pretty cool. Backstage, now we have a doctor with, Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission has got to be a doctor there at every event, and, paramedics and all that. So they know how bad so they had to take their time and untape Sabu. And Sabu says, they want to rush me to the hospital. Sabu says, no, give me stitches right now. No anesthesia. So they start stitching Sabu up with no anesthesia. Craziest thing I've ever done. So halfway through the stitches, Sabu says, okay, it hurts. Fonzie, go to 7-Eleven and get me super glue. Now they have super glue. That's medical super glue where they put it on and heal a cut up, but it's medical grade. It's not, it doesn't have petroleum and all that. So Sabu gets some normal super glue from the 7-Eleven and squirts it on his arm and squeezes it shut. The craziest fucking thing I've ever seen. And then the next week we're working again.
Teaming with your father against Terry and Dory Funk. There's stuff written about that on the internet anyway, so maybe.
Well, see, my dad always stayed babyface.
Right.
And I was a heel.
Right.
And the Funks were babyfaces. I wrestled the Funks.
Okay.
But my dad and I, the only time I ever remember him being in the ring with me as a tag team was out in North Carolina when I was just first starting.
And what are your thoughts on wrestling the Funks? They're so legendary in this business.
Oh, I am. My career would not be what it is without wrestling the Funks, without wrestling Wahoo McDaniels, without wrestling the guys at that level. And I mean, if you want your young career to be impacted, be told that you're going to wrestle for 60 minutes in your hometown against the world champion and get, you've never gone 60 minutes before, and have the world champion, probably the most abuse I ever had as being a promoter's kid, except for the Funks were promoters' kids too. But Dory was, I guess, about the 35-minute mark, and I was out of gas, and 25 minutes to go, and have the world champion just slap you on top of the head and tell you to get up, kid. It's a little humbling. But that changed my career because I then knew that conditioning was so valuable to your performance level. And it changed my whole mental process on how to get ready and prepare to be a professional wrestler.
College, I used to go to the matches and watch him, and a bunch of us would all go down and happy hour and then go to the matches and have a good time at the wrestling matches. And Terry just kind of noticed me, and I favored Terry. And when I first got there, a couple of the assistant coaches that were my coaches were actually really good friends with Terry. He says, "Guy, you look just like Terry Funk," And of course I knew who he was. I'd knew about wrestling a little bit, not a whole lot, but anyways, through that relationship, Terry and I developed a little bit of not a friendship, but acquaintance and so forth. And after football, he says, if you're ever interested, I never ever thought about it that much, but so that's how it was. I was starving, teaching, and I realized that maybe a chance to get into wrestling, make a little bit of money that I, didn't get to make in pro football. So.
And what was the training like?
Well, there wasn't no training, There wasn't any training. There was just a lot of great talent in the Amarillo territory. Moose Morawski and Carl von Steiger. And I mean, those are the two guys that really took me under their wing, and taught me a lot of stuff. And of course, Terry and Junior and Dory Senior was still alive at the time, and they kind of pulled me aside, showed me how to get a headlock and get an arm bar, and and basically that's it. Now get in the ring and learn, and that's it. I mean, there was no training.
Would it have been Terry Funk that brought you to Japan the first time through his connection?
Yeah, the Funks did book me the very first time in 75, I think. Yeah, 75, and the next time I was coming out of New York, and Vince Sr. booked me for New Japan this time. I went for All Japan and Baba the first time through the Funks. They were booking for Baba, and but the next time Vince booked me.
How did you end up making the switch to All Japan?
Well, they went and got New Japan. Ended up going and getting Abdullah the Butcher. So they started this war, and talent, which is that's good. I mean, it's good for the talent, isn't it?
Story, but I want to cover it by saying that it was young in Rick Martel's career, and we can laugh about it, and it would be embarrassing to him, but he is a great guy, extremely successful, saved his money, carved his niche. Gagne made him the world champion up there, and it's just a funny story. We were working the Florida territory, and we were going to Melbourne, and you go over Melbourne over to where I think the turnpike exit is in Ocala, and then you continue on a 2-lane road through the swamps over till you get to the coast to Melbourne. So Roger Kirby and I were tag partners. We're riding, and Terry Funk is driving and has Rick Martel with him. So there's no cars on that 2-lane road. This is the middle of the day. And all of a sudden I look in the mirror and I said, man, somebody's coming up behind us, and they're flying. And as the car goes, shoo, goes past, Kirby says, oh, he had that slow drawl. He said, that's that crazy Terry Funk. And had Rick Martel with him. So we don't go a whole lot past that, and all of a sudden we see a car in the middle of the road stopped on the highway. Right in the middle of the highway, in the middle of the stripe, where you can't, difficult to get, you could get around him, but difficult to get around him. You don't want to run into him. So as I slow down and realize that it's Terry Funk. So we stop a couple car lengths behind him, not knowing what's going on. And once we came to a stop, all of a sudden the passenger door opens. Rick Martel gets out of the passenger side, buck naked, and he's doing a dance around the back of the car for our entertainment along the driver's side. Before he gets to the front of the car, Terry Funk floors it. Zoom, it takes off, and all of a sudden Rick Martel realizes that, hey, the car I was in with my clothes just took off. Now he turns, and there's nobody else out there in this desolate highway but Roger and I. So we ease up, and we thought, we got to take off down the road too and leave him here at least for a minute or two. Just so as I ease up, all of a sudden I cut the wheel to the right to try and go by him, and he realized, oh no, and he's running alongside my side to grab and hold on to the mirror, and I just want to go, and I'm gradually picking up speed, and he's running faster, and then all of a sudden his fingers slip off the mirror, and I look in the rearview mirror, and there's Rick Martel, buck naked, flipping on the asphalt, and Roger, in his slow humor, said, "Oh my God, I think we might have killed him." So we rode ahead, and now Terry Funk has already started back. We make a U-turn, we go back, and it's Rick. And we stop, and then in that thing where he was running along the side of me, which was, I don't know how far he got, but it wasn't like, I don't even think it was 50 yards, if that much. Running naked, he had a cat's eye pinky ring that his sister had given him, that had great sentimental value, been in the family or something. And as he's running, that thing fell off. He said, "It's here somewhere." Now we feel bad because we pulled a rib on him, and we furthered the rib, and now he's lost his ring. And it's okay, well, it's got to be right here. We'll look for it if it fell off your finger. Fate would have it, one of those storms comes through, as happens in Florida, and all of a sudden the clouds come in and it is pouring rain. And we're walking on the edge of the road, quick hoping we find that ring. We are drenched. And finally, right on the edge of the grass is like a twig and had a little thing on it, and there's the ring sitting on it. Got the ring back, got in the car, all of us soaking wet, went on through to Melbourne, and went in to dry off. And of course, that story has lived on and on.
And you just mentioned Terry Funk. He's worked with us a few times. What do you think of Terry Funk?
Probably one of the greatest human beings on this planet. Never's got a bad thing to say about anybody. Did a lot of tours with him. Busted down his door in Tokyo one night.
How do you do that?
Well, Ric Flair and Hawk and I all were out drinking with a guy named Wally Yamaguchi. Wally was all Japanese but went to American college over in Japan. We were out doing some special occasion or something, and then Flair goes, we were staying at the Prince Hotel by Shinagawa Station. I'll never forget it. And they had the Japanese doors had these big, thick steel doors, man. They were brutally hard. And we all said, "Where's Funk?" And Flair goes, "Animal. Here's Funk's room right here." And we're knocking on the door, and Funky's not answering. And we're all drunk. And Flair goes, "Animal, 3-point stance." So I get down to 3-point stance, and Flair goes, "Hut." I knocked that door off the hinges. There's Terry Funk laying there, buck-ass naked, passed out, with ice wrapped around both knees, because he's, "God damn you, animal! What are you doing, you crazy son of a bitch? You guys are all nuts!" Because Terry was on the end of his tour, and Hawk and I were just coming in, and it was like our third night, and we just passed by in the night, Oh yeah, it was Terry Funk's good people, man.
The Stud Stable feuded a lot with Terry Funk, off and on. Any stories about Terry Funk?
Oh, man, you could go all night talking about Terry. I had the best match I ever had in my life with Terry. That's one that I can easily tell you. That we had a match in Knoxville, Tennessee. We were pushing my brother to work with. I guess it was Dory at that time, and we had Terry. We had 3 former world champions in the tournament, and I had drawn Terry for the tournament, and so I go out and make my interview on TV, and I say, "I'm gonna tell you something. I may not be the world champion. My brother's probably the man to work for this world, to be the world champion contender. But I'm going to see Terry Funk gets taken out. I'm going to see to it. It's the last thing I ever do. I promise my brother, God above, that I'll take Terry Funk out so my brother doesn't have to come back and beat him in order to get there." that it's the only thing I got to do. I'm going to do it. And so I go out. Me and Terry, we go time limit draw. It's got to be a winner. So 5 more minutes. I'm gassed. I mean, to the thing. So the finish on the thing, he's going to put me in a Boston Crab near the corner. And he's going to lean his head forward as the referee's asking me, do I give up? Do I give up? He leans his head forward into the corner to get extra leverage. It's the picture that we're painting. And so I fight and I fight and I fight, but when he gets that extra leverage and thing, I got to give up. So he not only beats me, and I don't do what I said I'd do, God above, I'll take him out, but he beats me with a submission. I give up. I'm gassed. I lay in the ring on my back, and I think I'm having a heart attack. I can't get up. I don't have any energy left to get up. I gave it all, everything. And that Boston Crab, after all of that, it just gassed me so bad. I was,
and that's very painful, like for fans that haven't been in one.
I was near death. I felt like I was near death. And my brother's standing back in the back, and he sees. And we don't have this planned. He sees it. He looks at it. He says, "Oh, he's having a heart attack." So he comes down to the ring, place quiet. You could drop a pin. And I'm laying there. And Ron comes in, he looks at me, he says, "You all right?" And I say, "I don't know. I don't know." And he said, "What's wrong? Is your heart?" I said, "I don't know. I can't get up." So he says, "Come on." He reaches behind my back and sets me up. And I say, "I don't have any energy. Can't stand." So him and the referee, they get me, and they pick me up. And I get to my feet. The friggin' place goes crazy. And I realize something. You know, it's something that you take to book, you take to own the territory, to book, that you ain't gotta win to get over. You don't have to win. That those people in that crowd, sold out house that night in Knoxville Civic Center, and they all, in their hearts, I was the hero of the night. I was the best thing there was all night long. That they were, every single one, joined to me like we were all one. And I felt it. And I looked around and I saw it. And I said, this is the best night I've ever had in the ring. I gave up a hold in the middle of the ring, and it's the best thing I ever did in this business because of the way we are in contact, me and these people. And my brother, he took me out of there. And so I look at Terry Funk and I say, "Boy, whew, you drilled me, man, but we worked friggin' hard. And if you weren't in shape, you couldn't work like that. You couldn't do it. And we beat the cold hell out of one another." And I love Terry for it. That's kind of.
Had Terry Funk for a while. That was a lot of fun. Was on the road a lot, but like I said, the business has been about a lot of things, mostly been about money, and money was good. Because I've always enjoyed being in the business. It's always been exciting for me, and it beats working.
Yeah, it's better than a normal job, that's for sure. Now, teaming with Dick Slater, I guess after the Dustin feud, they just wanted to transition you into a tag team.
Yeah, Slater was looking for work, and they wanted him to come in and be a partner. They wanted Funk. Ric Flair was in there in the booking office there after a while. Some of those Mike and
Tanya was eased out, and Ric Flair came in and he started doing the book. And Rick really liked the idea of Terry Funk and Bunkhouse Buck. It just kind of went together. And so we worked it for a while. And then I think Terry had some heat with the office there for some reason. I don't know what, but he didn't stay very long. And then Slater stepped in.
And how did you start doing the barbed wire matches, which you've become famous for? I guess it started over in FMW.
Yeah, one day I happened to have a barbed wire match. There was a 8-man tag barbed wire match out of the blue. I didn't know why we were having it, so I did it. And I tried really hard at it, or really tried my best at it, which meant I didn't think I'd see another one for 20 years. But I didn't know 2 weeks later, I had another one. I had 2 of them. And then a couple weeks later, I had a couple more. And then, like, finally, you know, about 6 months later, I had like 16 barbed wire matches, 15 barbed wire matches in 16 days, you know. And they thought I liked it, because I go, why am I in all these barbed wire matches? He goes, you love it. I said, no, I don't. They said, well, you act like you do. I said, well, it's called being a professional. You don't love anything, but you do it because you're good at it. And that you give it your honest effort. But they took that wrong. But anyways, it ended up being a blessing in disguise, sort of.
Did they have medics backstage in those days?
No, they did on big shows, but they were scared to come over to our side. They only treated the Japanese. They didn't treat our side.
Really?
Yeah.
I read one story in your book. I guess Chris Candido helped seal you up after a particularly
That was my first barbed wire match, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And you wrestled after basically sealing yourself up with super glue.
Super glue and tape, and every night they'd break open. And then by the end of the tour, my hands got infected and stuff. But it wasn't because of the super glue. Everybody misconstrued that. The super glue is clean. It's oil-based, not oil-based, it's alcohol-based. And so it's clean, and it was called surgical glue before it was called super glue or crazy glue.
And you feuded with Terry Funk. You beat him for the world title. Any memories of that?
Yeah, that was a good match. That was the time I wrestled him in a barbed wire match. Yeah.
That was probably your most famous match. Was there much plan going into that? I heard you say that, or I heard somebody say that that wasn't actually the proper type of barbed wire.
Yeah, the barbed wire is a little bit bigger. And when we went into the match, we didn't talk about much. And the finish wasn't supposed to go as that. Was that when we got stuck in that ball, it hurt him too much to roll him on top of me. I wasn't supposed to go over. It was an accident. But we were on top of him, and they were digging him so much that, and I was trying to pull him over me. I couldn't do it, not without hurting him, you know.
Did you experience any panic when you had your bicep ripped open?
Yeah, at first I did, because when I looked at it, there was absolutely no blood. It was just straight down to the bone, and you could just see how my muscle and everything was opened up clean. No blood. And all of a sudden it started squirting out my vein, and then that's when I got the tape to try to cut off the circulation. But yeah, it scared me because after a while it got covered in blood. It didn't look so bad. But when it was not covered in blood, it looked terrible. It scared the shit out of me.
And was there any talk at that point from Terry? We know he's crazy. Did he say, let's go home?
He was just like he gave me time to recover, you know, yeah, without looking silly.
I see. And is it true that he actually kept the match going a little bit longer?
Yeah, because when I was trying to get when I was fixing my arm, he was still beating me up, but he was keeping the match still alive. I kind of ignored him at that moment. As long as he wasn't picking me up, I didn't care.
Now, they did have medics backstage for that show, right?
Yeah.
And I heard that you took 50 stitches without any sedatives or anything.
150, not 50. 150, yeah. Wow. 50 of them fell out the first night because they didn't tie them very good. And they were made with such big stitches that, you know, it looked like a 100-pound test line. It was so thick.
Because it was just the... And we won't get into the Beyond the Mat because it's out there, but Terry Funk was part of ECW, and you've lived in Amarillo. He's from Amarillo. What's your opinion of Terry Funk?
I've always loved Terry, man. I don't understand why some of the things happened the way they did with the Beyond the Mat crap, but you know, forgive and forget and move on. I always thought Terry was one of the best workers ever, you know. And like many others, including myself, we hang on too long, and he certainly has. And God, it's hard to put something down that you love the way we love this. And,
Yeah, Terry, this is a funny one. Terry Funk and Dickie Murdoch used to come from El Paso back to Amarillo. And they would buy, well, this one is, you couldn't get away with this today, and I don't believe you should. But back in the days, the boys bought beer, and they would drink beer while they were driving and going home. There was this one light town before you got to Amarillo, about 40 miles, I can't remember the name. But Terry used to go through that town like at 2:30 in the morning, going about 95 miles an hour in a 45-mile-an-hour zone. And this cop used to chase him, and that was back, if you got over the county line, they couldn't chase you anymore. So this happened week after week after week. So about 5 weeks into this thing, same thing happens, but you got to come up over a hill before you get to Amarillo. And when Terry took the hill, the cop went over the line. And he says, well, I'm going to take it to the house, but you can't catch me. When he came over the top of the ridge, there was cop cars blocking it. And they knew it was Terry. And when he jammed on the brakes and put it in park, he opened the door, beer cans were falling out, the cop was livid. I got you now, I got you now, I got you now. And Terry looked at him and said, hey, why don't we just shake hands and forget about the whole thing? You know, that's Terry Funk, you know, he's a wild man, you know. And when you're wrestling, you know, when you're wrestling Terry, you're wrestling Terry. You know, you better have your boots tight and take a lunch. You know, he's Terry Funk. Guy that, if I could say, I'd like to see a match at the peak of Terry's career would be the Blood Hunter. Because we know about the Blood Hunter chopping a tree with his hand and blood coming out. He didn't know if he should get stitched up or not. His hands open up. He reminds me, there ain't many Terry Funks. There's no Terry Funks, but he's pretty close to being Terry Funk. I'd love to see that.
Now, I want to also mention some things coming up for you. SW Fury on December 12th and NAWA Jingle Brawl on December 19th. It's going to be a big one at the Ocean Center in Daytona Beach, Florida. Kevin, you'll be managing the Blood Hunter for his Florida debut. Also on the show, Davey Boy Smith Jr., Gangrel, Chase Stevens, Alpha Jr., Amber Nova, and many other stars available. Tickets are available on Ticketmaster or the Ocean Center website. Going to be great. NAWA Jingle Brawl.
And I just want to say, you know, Florida's my stomping area. And if you thought